Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Healing Art After Hours. I'm Shauna Robeson with Creating Space Coastal. And in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make an art journal out of anything but art. You're not going to be using anything that's art related. So this is all stuff that's either found object or something in the recycling bin or whatnot. And this is a self-love journal. And I'll be filling it in as we go. But if you want to see more, stay tuned and watch. And love y'all. Okay. Happy Valentine's Day. And I'll see you in a few minutes with the program. Okay. So the first thing I am going to start with is to mention I think I'm going to get to that second. I'm going to start with this. Okay, I talked about the mixed media mud pie layers, and this is a picture of what a mixed media, or not a mixed media mud pie. This is just a mud pie. But this is what that looks like, and it's just to die for. So I think it's a great representation of what we're doing because it's just yummy goodness in several layers. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these layers and then I'm going to show you examples of things that you can find around the house. Most people can find around the house that can be a substitute for these. So the first thing that you need when you're going to do any mixed media is you need a substrate. And the substrate is the base layer of your project. So that's the canvas. So what you're going to be working on. Now for this project today, I'm going to be working on, I'm making a journal. I'm going to make a little journal. And we'll see how far I can get with everything. But I did like a mix of papers. So it's like pieces of books that I've stuck, I stuck tea bags in. This was a calendar that someone had sent me and it had a heart, which I love. The heart has its reasons, which reason cannot know. So I thought that was cool. So I'm making this little junk journal or treasure journal. This is an old printout of a Google map, some notes that I made and doodles. This is from a paper bag. This is an old certificate I found from some training thing I did. Literally anything will work. This is from a newspaper, some kind of note that came in a letter from somebody, anything. This was a holiday letter from someone. And this is paper that I dyed with red cabbage, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more later. And then the outside of my journal is going to be this this cereal box. So there you go. That's my no art supplies needed journal, which I will work on more later. Okay, that's my substrate. And then the next thing you might need, as needed, if you are going to be starting with some wet media, you might want to put a primer down. So I'm going to try, and I don't know if this is going to work because the main thing you would want to use is gesso typically. And I can't use gesso because that's an art supply. So I have, this is latex paint that I've mixed with baby powder, and I'm going to try this as a gesso. So we'll see how that works. No promises. And I didn't know how much of what to put in. But that's what I'm going to use for my paint. Is I just have some house paint that was lying around, some white latex paint. So, and I think it's maybe a satin finish or something like that. So we'll see how that goes. And then just some generic baby powder. So that's all for that. Okay. Now I think what I would do if I wanted a clear gesso for that layer, I might try just putting some baby powder. You can also use baking soda. Is it baking soda? Yeah, I always think baking powder, baking soda. Baking soda, you can mix that as well, but you could just mix that maybe with an adhesive. So that might work as a clear gesso layer. Okay, the next layer is a collage layer, if so desired. And a collage layer just is made up of adhesive and collage materials. Now for adhesive, most households have some kind of white glue, either like, this is probably like a wood glue this was my boyfriend's, and there's school glue. So I count these, this is office supplies and this is hardware. So not art. So that's my way around that one. So that's what I'm going to use for adhesives. But most people do have some kind of glue sticks, something that they can use for an adhesive. And then for collage materials, I did go over a list of things last week, but I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to go over a few of those again. But collage materials can be either flat or moderately dimensional or three-dimensional. So it depends on how thick the item is. And you need the adhesive that works with whatever you're going to be using. So if you're going to do something that's more 3D, typically you would want to use more of like a gel medium, like acrylic gel medium. The Mod Podge might not be strong enough for that, or some other kind of stronger adhesive. But for the flat ones or the moderate dimensional, you could probably use typically a Mod Podge for the adhesive, or an acrylic medium would work for that. And you could use a gel medium or a fluid medium. Now, as far as the papers go, what I have in my non-art supply paper stash to choose from, I have toilet paper, paper towels, I have candy wrappers, I have packaging, I have, this is actually, I stained with that cabbage, I dyed with a cabbage, with boiled cabbage. You can use the envelopes, the security envelopes have these cool patterns inside. You could use magazine pieces. This is more packaging materials that's a little thicker for like a cover. You can even use tags to close, for example, if you want some thickness. And I'm going to show you how these work throughout this year. I'm going to be using all of these things. So you'll get to see how these are all used over time. This is the dyed paper. This is torn up, a torn up cardboard box that I just ripped off a layer. So I got nice corrugation there. This is from an old dictionary. So all of these things could play a role as collage material for any project. Okay, and then if I want to go a little more dimensional, I also can look at fibers. So let's look at some choices for fibers. I have, this is packaging material that I had for garlic. These are tea bags. This is some just packaging. This is threads that I pulled out of an old, I think it was like a sock or something. I just ripped it. I ripped some threads out of an old sock that I was throwing away. So now I have some like thread, again, trying to do non-art material. This is baby wipes that I used that has paint on it. Paper towels. I have tissue from gift wrapping. I have, these are dryer sheets. Now I actually took the baby wipes. This is a baby wipe that I stained with the red cabbage. All I did or the purple cabbage, all I did was boil this. And I want to tell you a little something about it, because you'll notice that some of these are bluish and some are pink. And these were all done with the same thing. But what happens with boiled cabbage is it actually is like litmus paper, which means that when the pH is acidic, it's more pink. And when it's more alkaline, it's more blue. So depending on the acidity of the solution, you can actually change the color. So I used it to dye some gauze, like, gauze for medical purposes. This is baby wipes. I also did the dryer sheet, which didn't take up a lot of the color, but there's a little bit of purple there. And then this was actually packaging material from sheets, I think. It's this was the tied around the sheets that I bought when I bought it, and I tore it, I cut it up into strips, and I think I dyed it first and then I cut it into strips. So it's basically now colored ribbon that's not art related. Okay. It was really fun trying to figure these out, I have to tell you. Oh, I also took these are tea bag strings, and I tied those together because I couldn't use thread and I wanted to have some fiber choices. So there are some choices of fiber. See what you can find in your garbage if you just look hard enough. I also have, this is just, I thought I could use this as a tie around the outside of my little journal. And I could stain this too, but this is from an old t-shirt. I just tore a strip off of it and it rolled up, kind of like making those old rugs. And so that would work great. It's kind of spongy or kind of elastic a little bit, so I could tie it around my my journal at the end. So that's another little fiber thing. Okay. What else do we have? So those are the more moderate dimensional. Now, 3-dimensional, that can be buttons or flowers, like, you know, paper flowers or game pieces, keys, anything that is 3-dimensional. And again, I would recommend if you're going to be using anything that's really 3-dimensional, you're going to want to use like a gel medium, because gel is a little bit thicker, or a heavy gel medium. The acrylic medium to attach those, or a really strong adhesive. You could use a hot glue gun or that sort of thing. Now, another thing you can make 3-dimensional or moderately dimensional with is, speaking of hot glue, you can actually just glue right onto your page and get some fun textures that you can use. So you can also make stencils if you want. So that's another, and I would call hot glue gun probably hardware. So you don't want to call. Okay, I have to show my outfit. Sorry, I shouldn't. You guys see these fun leggings? And I don't know if you can see my shirt. Let's see if I can show my shirt. I don't know if I can on this. My shirt says, "I love y'all." I meant to show that earlier, but it's love y'all. So because of Valentine's Day. I know, a little aside, but I could see my pants in the camera, and I remembered I was gonna. And I got these at the thrift store, so they were actually a really good deal, and they're comfortable. Okay, back to the program. The next step is texture, and normally I would use a texture paste or modeling paste if I was using something that was art supply related, or even a heavy gel medium or heavy gesso. So those are all have a little bit of thickness to them, and you can use those through a stencil. Now, for non-art supply related things, you could actually use paintable caulking, which I don't currently have around the house. I have a silicone, but it's not paintable. You want the paintable kind, or you can use a spackling paste. That will work as well, or joint compound. Any of those things could work as a texture paste. You could also add some of the baby powder or the baking soda to your, you could make your gesso that I made, which is basically just the paint and that powder. I could just make that thicker too, or I could put sand in it, make an additive like beach sand, and make an additive out of that. So that's another thing I think that would work. But again, I haven't tried the latex paint at all, so I'm not positive about that. All right, the next layer is a primer. So after you've done all your papers, you've done your texture, now depending on what you used, what the adhesive you used to make your collage layer, if you use the acrylic medium, typically you could just continue, because acrylic medium acts like kind of like a primer as well, because it attaches really nicely to other acrylics and lots of other pigmented mediums. It could work on top of that. Now, it doesn't have as much tooth as a gesso would have, because the gesso also has the chalk in it. But if you're just going to do paint on top of it, it works perfectly fine without any changes. Now, if you're going to do something else, if you used Mod Podge, and you're going to be using acrylic paint on top of that, the Mod Podge does have a bit of varnish in it, and so it seals it up a little bit, and it may not stick to the layers on top of it as easily. So in order to make sure that you have good adhesion, you may want to do a primer over your texture layers. Now, you may want to do that anyway, because if you're using like a white gesso or something like that, you might want some white background covering some of your collage. So that is part of the look too, not just creating the function of being able to paint on top of it. So it depends on what you're trying to do. And again, I'll show you all of these steps as we go along. Now, in this case, I don't have a primer, but what I would probably do is, like I said, I have this, I'm going to try to use this gesso that I made with the latex, and we'll see how that goes. And I'm not sure how that's going to go. Okay, after you get it ready to add the pigmented medium, that's the paints, pencils, pastels, inks, whatever you're going to add. And again, depending on what you've used, some things are going to stick better than others. Oil pastels are probably not going to play as nice on there and stick to things because oil is not water-based. So typically you want to try to do more water-based. Now wax pencils probably will work, but they might not stick to the, some of the layers might be tricky. I'm going to be using some wax things, but for my pigmented mediums today, I'm going to be playing around with using I only have this one white paint. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be mixing some things with the paint. Like I have these colored seasonings, spices, like turmeric is very pigmented. I have cinnamon, so I'm going to try some of these to add to it. What I've also done is I've burned some paper and I made some ashes so I can make like a charcoal with that. And I also ground up some pencil. Now that's an office supply. So, and so I using just some sandpaper, or I also did a little bit of grading through a strainer, and I made some graphite dust. So I can either add that to paint, or I can use that with my finger as, you know, kind of a shading pigment. I also have some more of the liquid from that purple cabbage that I boiled. So I could use that. And I have some coffee spray. I have some vanilla extract, which is more alcohol based. So be aware of that. It's going to go through your paper. And then for lots of fun, I have cosmetics. I have a variety of color in my cosmetics. I have nail polishes, I have eyeshadows, I've got lip liners, I've got lip gloss, and I've got lipsticks, and I've got eyeshadows. I think I already said that. So, and I've got eyeliners. So we're going to play around with that. Okay, I think that covers all of my pigmented things that I have around. Okay. And then once you've gotten all your color down, now, sometimes while you're working with your color, your pigmented color, you might have to do a fixative layer, meaning you need to stop it from being activated by water, because like things like watercolor, those stay activatable by water. Some things, once they dry, become permanent, such as the acrylic paints. They are water soluble, meaning that they can be thinned with water, but once they dry, they become permanent. So if when the item dries, it's not permanent, such as pastels tend to not ever be permanent, like the soft pastels, or if it's water soluble, oil pastels, sometimes those can still be activatable, and some are more than others. But if it can be activated by a liquid, then when you add a layer of your acrylic medium or whatever you're going to do on top, it might smear. So you may need to, throughout working, you might need to do fixative layers. Now, a non-art supply fixative layer that I have is Hairspray. A lot of people use that for pencil or for soft pastels and whatnot. So I have some of that available. You can also use the acrylic gel mediums as a fixative as well. Okay, so I've got the fixatives, which again, you might do a layer of something and then do a fixative and then do a layer of something else that might be more wet or whatever. It just depends on what you're doing with your pigmented mediums. And then after that, you may want to do a layer just to kind of get everything onto the same page, basically, and do a fixative layer, like a layer of acrylic medium or Mod Podge as kind of a sealer or finishing layer. But then you want to do a final layer of varnish if you really want it to be secure. And if you're doing an art journal, because it can be kind of tacky, acrylics do tend to stay a little on the tacky side, and that's the part of the reason of doing the varnish, because that reduces that tackiness that might attract dust and things like that. It also protects it from UV, and all of that. But in a journal, you don't want it sticky, because you don't want the pages to stick together and then tear, because that can happen if you're just using Mod Podge. If you are going to use Anything, I would say try to keep it as matte finish as possible in a journal, just to keep it from sticking together. But I think with the varnish, you can do a gloss varnish afterwards if you want it to be glossy in the end. And I think once it's cured, it's fine, and it won't stick together. So, all right. So that's basically the mixed media mud pie layers. And now it's already 7:45. We're going to start doing some stuff, doing the fun stuff. See what we do with these things. Now, the theme of this week, let's get to that, is the prompt was, how do I love me? Let me count the ways. And the concept is self-love, because when we want to love, we got to start with ourselves. So think of ways, if you're going to do a journal prompt in writing, you may want to just write about, how do you show yourself love? What things do you do, or can you do, or that you want to do more of, that will show you love? And one way to think about that is, if you've ever heard of the 5 love languages, we tend to have a love language that we use to show towards others. And sometimes we forget to show that to ourselves. So the 5 love languages are words of affirmation, physical touch, receiving gifts, quality time, and acts of service. And I think I might put a link to this in the free resources too. It's just something I got on, I did on just a Google search of the 5 love languages. But what I like about it is it breaks down how to communicate with someone who has that as a love language, what actions you can take, and things to avoid with interacting with someone who has that love language. So it's just thinking about, how do you show yourself love? How do you show other people love? Will give you a clue of what your love language is, and then see how it is that you show yourself love. Are you showing it through your love language as well? Are you doing it more or less than you do other people? But and so this journal that I'm creating is going to be a journal that's going to be all about self-love. Everything in here is going to be either affirmations or reminders, some just loving words that I'm going to be able to show myself whenever I'm needing some extra love for myself. So that's going to be my plan for this journal, my intention for this journal. All right. So let me get started. Now I'm going to do all the details of that down the road, but I did like cut out a bunch of hearts and things out of a Costco flyer. That's my go-to, the Costco catalog, because I don't get any magazines, so that's what I use. So anything that was heart related or love related, I cut out. So those are ready to go. All right, the first thing I'm going to do, because these need to take time to dry, is I'm going to show you how to create some fun papers that you can use for your journal out of things that are not heart related. Now, this is pasta, but you could use rice. You could use, there's a lot of different things you can use, maybe even paper pieces. You can use string. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up. This is going to be a little bit messy. So we'll see how this goes. I'm going to break this up and lay it on the page. And I haven't done this before, but I just have these ideas and I want to try them out. So we'll see together how they work. This surface isn't all that flat, so I feel like I need a surface under it that's going to be flat for this to work, because these are going to roll all over the place. So let me try this again. Okay, there we go. Because I have to move this. I'm going to have to move this thing after I do this. All right, I'm just gonna, and then like I said, you could use string. I'm going to use some of that string that I made. I'll do that on my next one. Okay, so then I'm going to take, and you can use the coffee, or you could use the juice from the whatever vegetables or fruits that you stained, the stain that you made, if you make some. And I'm just gonna spray this paper. No less coffee. Okay, and I think what I'm also going to do is take some regular table salt. Oh, I like the bubbles. This might be fun. And I'm going to put a little bit of that on there too. See what that does. Again, not art supplies. Okay, so I'm going to make this wonky paper. And this is just printer paper. So it's not a special kind of paper. Now I'm going to just put this aside and let it dry. Don't try to speed dry these ones. That's why I want to do that one first. I want to give it plenty of time to dry. And like I said, you can use rice. I'm going to actually do one with string since I have that thread. Find my and then it'll actually stain the thread too. So it'll be like a dual purpose. Okay. I'm going to just put this thread down in some kind of funky pattern. It's not a lot of it. Maybe I'll lay this down too. This is just like a scrubber from the bathroom. I don't know if this will work because I don't know if it'll lay flat, but I'm going to try a little bit of that. It wants to stay really really three-dimensional, so it may not work, but we're going to just play and see what happens. Okay, now I'm going to use this cabbage stain. It does still kind of smell a little like cabbage. Now, if I wanted to make it more blue or more blue or more pink, I could try to put something acidic on there to make it change. I don't have vinegar handy here, but that's one way you could play around with that. Right now it's got actually blue areas and pink areas and little chunks of cabbage probably, but that's okay. I don't know. Weird, but you know, that's what's great about the art journal is this is a place where you can experiment, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and it's not like a huge loss because only you have to see it, and then you know, and then maybe you don't do an art project using that technique or whatever it is, you know. So all right, and then let's see what else. Oops, let's see what else we can come up with. I don't know what it would look like if I mixed those two. I think that would be kind of weird. Let's do some vanilla extract, and let me try this. Let's see what happens. Now you can see the paper gets really see-through very quickly because this is an alcohol based. Smells really good though, let me tell you. And the sprayer makes it getting high on the fumes. Okay, and it's alcohol, so alcohol is not gonna react with alcohol. So I'm trying to think of what I want to add to it. Let me just see what happens if I sprinkle a little cinnamon. I don't know. We'll see what happens. That may or may not do a darn thing, but I'm gonna try it out. It smells really good though, I'll tell you that. And if worst case scenario, I can just scrunch it up and stick it in my cup of tea. All right, I'm gonna let those papers cook or dry and see what happens later. Okay, so here's the noodles. And all I'm gonna do is, it's also got some of the salt, and I'm gonna be just like, oops, I've got paint on. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna wipe the paint off, the paint and the glue off my fingers before I start. And then I'm just gonna use the, I can use this to just lift those up. And some of them might be a little bit more tricky. You gotta be careful to not damage your paper, but you're gonna get some interesting patterns. So this is what I'm gonna just loosen them all up. They're really sticky because this is basically gluten, which is like a glue. So they are a little bit sticky. So just be a little careful or it could tear the paper. Oh, I feel bad that I didn't show these before everybody had to leave, but just one of those nights where I try to pack too many things because I want to show you guys everything in the entire world in one night. It's the eternal optimist in me where I think I can get more done than is realistic. So, okay. And I made it without tearing. Now, if I tore the paper, it's not that big of a deal if I'm using it as a collage background, right? So, because I'm going to tear it anyway, I'm just going to dump these in the trash. I suppose you could try using them again, but I'm not going to get that cheap. Okay, and then I got this really cool textured paper. It's got some interesting designs on it that I can use. Oh, there's a few salt pieces in there. And it's got a great texture too. The back's interesting as well. So I have either a page for my journal or I have a cool piece of collage paper without having any fancy decorative scrapbook paper. Okay, let's look at another one. Let's see how this one did. I don't know if this added to it or not, but I'm going to save this because I want to mix that with a little bit of, I want to mix that with a little bit of the paint and see if it colors the paint at all. That could be fun. I haven't tried anything with coloring the paints yet, so that would be something that I'm going to be doing. Okay. So that's just, you know, an interesting, again, it's got some interesting texture to it. And because I had it laying on a wire rack, it actually showed up the wire rack lines. A drying rack, which is kind of interesting. That just adds to the interest. And it smells really good. It really does. All right, and let's see what this one did. All right. I think if it was heavier string and more dye, it would have showed up better, but I don't see a lot of the string effect. There's a little bit. Maybe I could have sprayed it more, but it's still a pretty paper. And again, it's got some interesting texture. It's still drying, but yeah, so another fun piece of paper I can use for stuff. Now, when you are, if you're stamping or spraying, if you use some paper as like scratch paper underneath where you're spraying or to go over the top of a stamp or something, you can use these kinds of papers too. And then just keep them. They'll have a little paint on them or a little color, and those can create some cool collage background paper for the future. So yeah, anything paper, you can kind of come up with something. Okay, all right, on to my book. So let's get this puppy made. I wanted to just show you this because it's pretty quick and easy to throw. I mean, you don't have to do anything too fancy. So hopefully I'm going to remember how to do this. But and I'm going to do it a really unfancy way. The first thing I'm going to do is try to get my papers to be somewhat the same size. Now, you know what I think I want to do? I want to make a heart. So I can use a Sharpie because the Sharpie I consider a general household item, as long as it's not colored. If it's colored, then that's probably not. But I think I'm going to make a heart. So I'm going to use my thinner Sharpie. So I'm going to try to make a heart shape as best I can. Kind of a half heart. All right, so there's my heart shape. So I'm going to make this a big heart because it's going to be for my, and hopefully it's getting all of my, everything that I want to get in there. Some of it's probably going to get trimmed off, but that's okay. All right, and then I'm going to take scissors. This is how uncomplicated this has to be. And maybe I can go through all of these layers and maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. It's kind of tough. I think I'm going to have to, especially this top layer, I think I have to at least trim that. Let me get that one trimmed by itself. You're like, how is this going to ever turn into something that looks like art? Well, it needs to be seen, right? Now I have a guideline for my heart. Okay. So now I'm going to put this back in and see if I can get through these thinner papers. If I was doing straight lines, I would do the tear technique where I just tear the pages in straight lines with a ruler, but because I want them to be, it's kind of a curved line, I can't do that easily. It's not easy to, I could tear them, but it'd be hard to tear them in a specific shape. So, and that takes too long. All right, now I have a heart-shaped book. Ta-da! All right, and then I'm going to go to my center page, and I kept most of what it said, so that's good. And then using something that's not art related, like an ice pick, I'm going to punch some holes in it without trying to kill myself. Now I'm going to get my cutting mat back over here. I'm going to go about an inch from the top, roughly. I'm not even going to measure it, even though I could officially use a ruler. I think a ruler counts as not particularly art. Then I'm going to make something the other inch away from the bottom. Okay. And then I'm going to make something roughly in the middle. Like I'm just eyeball. And hopefully no blood. I mean, that's something you probably could use as a pigmented medium, but I don't recommend it. So no sangre. Okay, now this is an art tool. So if you don't want to use this, that's fine. I'm going to put that away because I feel like that's cheating. So I'm going to see if I can do this without, but that would be really helpful to use. But I have some dental floss and it's mint flavored. So it's going to even add to my scents over here, my ambiance of scent. Okay, I'm going to go the length of the spine, 1, 2, 3. That'll give me enough to work with. Now in this case, it has its own little cutter somewhere in here. And now I have to see if I can get this through these holes. And if I made the holes big enough, the first thing I'm going to do is, I think I go from the inside to the outside. I hope I'm remembering this right. And if I can't do it without that needle, let's see, I think I'm just going to try to make this hole bigger. I really want to not cheat. Make this up a little bit. And it's somewhat stiff, so I think it's doable. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to try to go from the outside to the inside. I'm going to get my ice pick back in there to make sure I want to make sure my holes lined up. So I'm going to do that with my ice pick. And then but you could use a darning needle, you know, if you're going to use an art supply. So now you pull it. So I went in through the center hole, then I went out and into the top hole, and now I'm going to pull it, not all the way, don't pull it all the way through. Now I'm going to go through the bottom hole, I'll line it up. And I might have done this backwards, but I don't know. It's either from the inside to outside or the reverse of this. I think it's this way. I think this is right. I only did it at one other time, so this is not my expertise, but no matter what, this is going to stay together, you know, so it doesn't matter if it's right because this is for me. And I'll find out. I think this hole's a little bit small, so I'm just going to make sure I open it up a little bit. Like I said, when you don't use those art supplies, things take longer. All right, so now I went through that bottom hole, and now I'm going to go through the center hole one more time from the outside to the inside. And this side is a little trickier. I'm bending it so I can see the hole a little bit better. This might be the tricky part. Bring that one through. Get my see, this could be a cautionary tale of use art supplies, but then you know, either way, you get my papers lined up here. There we go. Or maybe if I was hoping it would just push this thread through with the point of that, but it didn't work. Did that work? Oh, I think so. Nope. I'm gonna straighten that little thread. There we go. I think. Got it. Okay. Now I have two strings in the middle. I'm going to put one side on each side of this thread. So one's coming on this side of the thread and one's coming out on the other side of the thread. And then I'm going to do double knots. I don't know, I'm going to do double knot one way. Then I'm going to try to do a double knot the other way. And we can discuss this and show and tell if I did a single knot. That's okay. Yeah. You guys might have better ways to do this. There are probably a million different ways that you can find online that might be better than this, but this was pretty easy to do. Now somewhere I do have scissors because that's fair, but I can't find them. Oh, there they are. Okay. Like I just used them to make the heart. I couldn't have gone too far. All right, so now I have.
Donna, you can actually bind the book into with letters on the side of the spine. I've put in a link by C Lemon on Coptic Stitch tutorial book binding, but she does one where you can actually put words on the side if you're making a thick enough journal.
Oh, right. So this would be like one signature of a book, and you can make several of these and then make a thick journal that has several signatures.
Yeah, and then you could write art or Shauna or something on the sides of the spine.
Exactly. And someday I might actually put together one of those. But for now, this is just the simple. Yeah, this is basically one signature if I was going to make a bigger book. And you use about 10 pages, like 10 to 12 pages, depending on how thick they are. And you could make several of these signatures and then make it as thick as you want. And you can use a cereal box as the spine. And then you'd be able to, you would do well, there's different ways to bind it, but you could do the same stitch all the way along that piece. Anyway, someday I'll show that, but yeah, check out the link that she put on there if you want to do a deeper dive in making your own. I think it's kind of fun, to be honest, so I'll probably be doing more of that. All right, so now I have my substrate. Now let's start getting some get messy. Let's start getting messy. All right, the first thing that I want to do, let's get where's my instructions? If we're following my mud pie, we have the substrate now. Now we're going to prime it. So let's see what happens when we use my homemade primer. I don't know how that's going to work. We're going to find out together. Now, how am I going to do this without an art supply? Well, I'm going to count. I could do it with my fingers if I wanted. I could also do it with a sponge. So maybe I'll do that. And I'm going to just mix this up with chopstick. It's kind of thick at the bottom. I don't know that it's the best. It's pretty thick. So it's kind of like a thick gesso. I could also use, this is actually just a paintbrush that I would call hardware, but I'm gonna stick to, I'm trying to get away from anything that looks remotely like an art supply. So let's see what we can do. But I could even just use my fingers, to be honest, if I wanted to. I could use a rag.
A popsicle stick.
The thing is that this is going to be more like a paint consistency rather than a popsicle stick would be great for doing like a texture paste.
Oh, okay.
But this is a little bit too soft for that. So I could use, however, I think this might be nice to use. I'm going to be using this old t-shirt. So I'm going to get that ready. I'm going to try a sponge first. This is just a cut up kitchen sponge. And I'm going to see, and I might even actually wet it a little bit first. I'm going to try that. All right, let's do this. I don't want too much water. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Now this is going to have to dry, but I can use a hair dryer, which is not an art supply. Now I think I'm going to open this up so I can do the whole outside of this journal. And again, this is latex. Now latex is more of a rubber base, right? Latex, which is a little different than an acrylic. And you know what acrylic does when it hardens, it's very, very hard. And house paint is really designed to last about 10 years. It's not designed to last for hundreds of years, which, you know, acrylic is actually designed to be around for a really long time. So this is not as durable a paint product. So I wouldn't recommend using it for anything that you want to be, you know, a fine art piece, but it's okay if it's what you have and you're making an art journal. Now, let me get my hair. Oops. Uh-oh. Are you guys there?
Yep, still here. Still
Okay.
here. I just made doop, doop.
Oh my goodness. I just hit my power button. Trying to grab my hair dryer. I turned off my power strip.
I heard the little beep, 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 beep that you stayed on for me.
Now, fortunately, my laptop is my computer and it has its own power source, but my camera does not. So I have to start my camera. You guys, this is, and you know what's funny is my hair dryers, I'd actually moved it to a hook on my desk so that I wouldn't have to go digging in my cable bin for it. And I forgot about it. So, okay, why is my, let's see, get my light back. Wait, did I turn it? Hold on a second. Let me see. Can't tell if I'm. Huh. I think it's back on, but my light won't go back on. And neither will my monitor. So maybe I might have bumped it and then I actually turned it off. Oh, I did. I bumped it and it kind of went off back on again. And then I thought I turned it off. So I went to turn it on, but I actually turned it off.
It says it's still recording. I think you're good.
Welcome to my world. I know we got all that on recording. Wonderful. I'm thrilled about that. Ay Dios. Ay Dios mío. Ay Dios mío. Okay, here we go. Back in business. I love you guys because you love me even though I'm human. Okay.
Because you're
Donna,
human.
I wouldn't be, I would feel too badly about myself.
I'm glad I can help everyone feel better about themselves.
You do too.
I'm happy to oblige. I'm more than happy to oblige. Okay, let me see if I can get my light back on. Okay, here we go. That was the clue. It turned my light off. All right. Take two. Jeez, be funny. Okay, let's see if I can share my screen again. What not to do. Okay, here we go. And you're in live recording. All right. Okay, are we back in business? I think we should be back in business. Okay, if I'm not hearing anybody say, and it says I'm screen sharing, so I think we're good.
We're good.
Okay, I'm gonna actually just, that's given this time to dry a little bit, but I'm gonna actually dry it a little bit more with my hair dryer. So I'm going to turn off the sound for a minute. Okay, now this is, the cereal box is a little glossy, so I could have done a little sanding before doing the paint and that might make it adhere a little bit better. So, you know, that could cause a problem. You know, you can kind of check if you can scratch it with your fingernail, you know, it might not be, it looks like it's doing pretty good actually. Okay, so I have my first layer and now I want to do some collage and some stuff on top of the outside of this. So I'm going to play around with some things, but I wanted to make sure that things could stick to it easily. So I wanted to try out that my gesso. So I could have just sanded a little bit for the paper layer, but I wasn't sure what I was going to be doing. So I'm kind of building as I go. Okay, I think somewhere in here, because I want to cover all of this, you know, not so attractive cereal box. Well, so I'm going to be just basically putting some old dictionary, really old. This paper is very brittle. Now for my adhesive, I'm using just, and some people talk about this, they just to make Mod Podge, quote unquote Mod Podge. Now Mod Podge is really, it's basically like PVA glue mixed with some varnish. Now this is just a watered down PVA glue, so it has no varnish properties, which is fine because we're not trying to seal anything. So that's why some of those recipes out there you might see to make your own Mod Podge is basically just PVA glue watered down. But I think the varnish aspect of it might add to some of the strength of it too. It might be a little stronger. I can't say that for sure. The other thing I want to add is some of my stained paper that I made. I altered paper with.
So then what is PVA glue?
So that's polyvinyl. I think it's polyvinyl acetate or polyvinyl something. I don't remember what the A is, acetone, but it's a vinyl product. And that's the difference between, if you think about vinyl, like vinyl records or vinyl sheets, how they're kind of soft. Vinyl records are a little bit more brittle. But if you think about acrylics, when you see a hard acrylic, like a hard acrylic block, those are really strong and tough. That's the difference between this type of glue and using an acrylic medium, because that polymer is a lot stronger. The bond is stronger and you get a stronger product, a stronger adhesion when you use an acrylic versus the polyvinyl, because it's a vinyl based versus acrylic based, if that makes sense. So, and then of course this paint, which is latex based, it's still going to have some binders in there, and I don't know what kind of binders they are, but it's just not as durable. The acrylic is just a really strong adhesive. Okay, so I have some of those pages. Let's see what else I want for my base layer. So this is just the first layer. I think I kind of want to use this Good and Plenty on there. I don't know. Good and Plenty of self-love. These are going to be probably my upper layers. So see, I have all these cutouts, these little hearts and things like that with words on them. So I'm going to keep those handy. I could even, I might be able to use that. It's just a, I'm going to use these somewhere in there too. Okay. And I want to use some of my gauze, but I think that's going to be the next layer too. So I'm going, and I can even go back in some of the pages that are inside. Remember, I cut those pieces off, so I could actually even take some pieces of that if I wanted to use. Nothing goes to waste here. All right, let's see if I have any of these that are good, just good background pieces. Maybe I'll just Okay. I'm going to start there, and then I'll maybe add some more. I'll add some more if I need to. I'm going to be covering a lot of it anyway. So now what I could do is I could glue it down, and then later on I'll trim the edges, but I want to make sure I want to cover this whole thing. Now what I did is, like I said, I watered down the glue, and I just did 1 part water to 3 parts glue. And this glue was pretty thin to start with. I think some of the white glues are different consistencies, but this one was pretty thin. So this is a pretty watery version of it. And I think to apply this, I'm going to just use, I'm going to use the sponge again. This is a little tray, so I can kind of do it like paint. So I'm just going to fill this little tray and brush that glue on and lay my piece down. And then brush a little glue on top of it. And that just, the glue will actually absorb into the fibers depending on how porous the paper is, and it acts like, I mean, it really sticks it down when you do that. Now this guy. I did do some samples in my other art journal that I experiment with things in just to try out, and I'll show you that too. But it's like I did samples of, oh, trying to glue this down or doing this color or something. So I could see some things that worked. So some things I did try ahead of time, but I didn't, but not too much. I wanted you guys to, I wanted you guys to be on this adventure with me. So. Now it could be that in like 5 days, this whole thing's going to fall apart because, like I said, when you're using non-art supplies, there's always a little bit of a risk of it not functioning the way you imagine it's going to function. So, because it's not necessarily designed for that exactly. So just keep that in mind. Be willing to try things out, but don't be too upset if they don't work out the way you think. Think of it as an experiment. Now, I used to be a clinical lab scientist, so science is kind of in my blood. I like to experiment and see how things work. So I don't mind. It's part of the self-love. It's like, you know, I'm not perfect, but I love myself anyway. And that's what this is, a good representation of that, which is partly why I want to do this way, is that, you know, the idea that we are imperfect and we're still beautiful beings that deserve love and respect, and especially from ourselves. And we should embrace that, embrace our quirks, our imperfections, be vulnerable. So here we are, exploring that with the world. Now this sponge is putting a lot of bubbles in this, which I don't mind, but you may not want that. So that would be, you know, using a brush, you're gonna probably get, or just be, you know, you have to be a little bit careful, or you know, wipe out the bubbles, but that's gonna give texture. So I don't mind that so much, because it's gonna be under the paint. So I like texture. Assuming we can actually get paint to work. We shall see. paper. Let's see, it's blue paper. Now you could use, and somewhere I have an old credit card to apply the adhesive down, and to kind of smash your papers down if you want to. You know, that's a good tool. But I don't know if it would be able to control it quite as much as with this. So kind of like this. Ooh, chocolate. That's part of self-love. Let's see. I want some more of something. I want more cowbell. Okay, only some of you are going to get that. I really want more dictionary pages. I thought I had more.
Donna, some people are asking what type of glue were you using?
Oh, so this is basically, this is some kind of white, like wood glue is the same kind as like, is white glue or Elmer's glue. It's just that PVA, Elmer's glue or anything that says school glue. They're usually the same thing. The white glue and like this, like school glue. And then I just did 1 part water to 3 parts glue. I used this Mexican brand. I don't know what all that says. It says white pigment base, water-based. So it's water-based white glue. And it's all in Spanish. So I'm not sure. That's what I'm using. But you could use a school glue, Elmer's glue, any kind of white crafting glue. Typically I would use a Mod Podge. If I was going to, you know, break into my art supplies, then I would use either a Mod Podge or an acrylic medium to do this. Oops, I want to cover that whole thing. I don't want to do that. Okay, we are almost there. Almost there, folks. Almost to the edge. And those sponge brushes that you can get at the dollar store, those work great too, and I would use that, but I thought that was too close to an art supply, so I was trying to not use it. Trying not to cheat. All right, that is nice and messy. I'm just going to wash the glue off my hands so I don't stick to everything. And I'll be right back and let that dry a little bit. I actually am going to get a rag that I wet that I have handy here. Well, it's good to have a wet rag to keep your hands somewhat under control. All right, while that's drying, I'm going to give you guys a little tour of what I was talking about. So if I want to try something out, this is sort of my experimental journal. So what I did is I just on some pages, I took some of these supplies that I'm going to be using and I created swatches and I wrote what they were so I could see how they behaved in this paper. And I tried different things with them. Like these are some of the makeup stuff. This is the coffee. This is the vanilla extract, the red cabbage spray. These are nail polishes. Then I experimented with some of the grounded graphite. This was some makeup, and this is some techniques that I was trying with the graphite that I'm going to show you guys. Oh, this is a blend and fill wood pencil that you use for furniture. And it doesn't blend real well with your finger, but it's kind of like a wax pencil. And then I even glued some of these fibers that I dyed. And I glued them on with this glue that I made to see if they would stick. Okay, and they did. They worked out okay. So, and then I even had like a page where I just, where did that page go? Leave that in here. I even just practiced on just a sheet of paper, and I could, just to see, oh, I'm going to try this makeup. This was some eye mascara, things like that. So yeah, play around. If you're thinking about trying something on something, you can either just go for it and try it, especially if it's in a journal, or you could try it in your practice journal and see how it goes. Okay, let's see if I can make sure I'm not gluing myself down to anything. Okay, that's drying. I'm gonna try to dry that a little quicker, save us a little time. Let's stick that in the water. My sponge in the water. Sorry. I'm sticking my arm in your face, basically. Okay, let me pause the sound for a minute. I just realized there's an empty hole right in the middle. I don't know if I had something there and then I thought it was glued down and it wasn't. So I'm just gonna fill my little hole. Let's see what I have here.
You had a row of red hearts.
Oh, I was hiding my little, hiding the hole. Okay. Let's see what I can fill that with. Yeah, it wasn't glued down. Let's see what this is. This says Valentine's, but I think I want to make sure that that's seen. And these things might not be. I'm gonna wait on that one. Okay, let's just use this piece right here. Okay. You can use the finger tool. At any point in time. It's kind of therapeutic. However, keep in mind chemicals, because some things absorb through the skin. So, and this is usually pretty safe, this school glue type stuff, because, it's designed to use with kids and things like that. So, although I use that other kind, so I'm not positive what's all in that. But just be aware that chemicals can absorb through the skin. So if you're going to be using the finger tool, make sure that you're not touching something that could be toxic. Don't do as I say. Don't do as I do. All right, now I'm gonna finish drying that. Gonna turn off the sound again. Okay, now it's maybe a little tacky in some places, but that's okay because I'm going to be doing some more gluing on there, but I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going to stick to everything. Now I'm going to try this. I think it'll work, but sometimes when you need to get rid of the edges, you could use the scissors, but sometimes you can use a little sanding block depending on what it is. And you can try get kind of a little rougher edge, I like. Again, not an art supply. This is nice for like if you're repurposing like a tag, you know, if you're making a tag or something and the papers are a little long, or if you have a playing card that you're repurposing and you glued stuff on, you can just trim it. A little bit of sanding. That is also a way you can smooth out your edges if you're using a thick, you know, particle board, something or other, you can trim your edges that way. I'm tearing a little bit, but so like see how this little corner is there? I could, you know, I could sand that down, make it smoother if I want to. It's basically like wood. It's just wood. I mean, it is wood. It's just wood pulp. So all right, and then there's my layer 1, or really layer 2 because it's the paper layer. Now that didn't stick. Maybe not enough glue, so I can just go back, add a little more glue. Part of it's because I folded this and it put some stress on it when it wasn't completely dry, so I'm sure that's part of it. No. All right, now I'm going to be gluing some additional things on, so I'm not going to do another layer. I think I could just glue on top of this glue layer. But if I was going to start doing painting or something, I would maybe think about a gesso layer, but I'm going to get to the gesso layer later because I'm still going to do a little bit more gluing. All right, I want some texture on the outside of this book. want to make this like a little, kind of a little band across there. So. Like that. Go like a little heart cozy, kind of like you put on your coffee. Yeah. I'm going to get plenty of glue. Hopefully this will stick on there nice and it'll stick to itself because it's glue on glue. So I think this will be fine. And then I'm going to find that darn, where's my, oh, here. Okay. Used credit card or gift card or something like that is a great palette knife. I'm going to just make sure that all of this is covered nicely with the glue. And I'm making sure that there's an abundance of it because this is pretty thick stuff. So it's got to have plenty. All right. And then I'm just going to pop that where I want it. Kind of like that, sort of. And it's even dripping out. So it means there's plenty of glue. Oh, making a mess. Fun times. I don't want too much glue all over my surface, so I gotta be careful. Ooh, that's cool. Check that out. I just laid this wet towel on this paper that was stained with the dye from the cabbage, and look at that yumminess. That's going to be some cool paper that I'm going to use for something. Happy accidents. Okay. Yeah. Want to make sure it can open and close. So I may, want to have it stick up a little bit. All right, and then what else do I want on the outside? Am I ready for, I don't think I'm quite ready. Well, maybe. Let's see. Let's see what else I have, what other goodies I have. I think I do want a little bit of that. Was it the baby wipes? Let's see. Let me rummage in my stash. Here. What is my guys? I don't know how I lose things. I set everything within my hand's reach. Here we go. Okay, that's not the fibers. Where did my fibers go? Something. How to lose something within a 5 square feet of space. Oh, here we go. I rolled it away. That's the problem. Okay. I think I want a little bit of this, maybe this baby wipe. Or the dryer sheet, or maybe a little bit of both. Definitely want some gauze. Ooh, I know. I want some of this tissue paper. I want it all. I want everything. My problem. But you know what, folks? I can do anything I want. I can have anything I want. It's mine. I want some of this tissue. I don't want the scallops. I like things to be kind of organic. So I like to tear. And tearing is very therapeutic. Tell you what. All right, I think we could, yeah. We're just gonna make a nice swath of that to go along with my collage here. I haven't even got to the inside of this thing, but look how much fun I'm having with nothing related to art. Just gonna remind you that. I mean, it's everything related to art because it's making art out of anything, but okay, all right, I think I can work with that. And I want this sort of, ooh, see, look at that. It makes, when you tear it, it's real fibrous. So I'm gonna like pull that apart. Ooh, yummy. Yummy like a mud pie without the chocolate. I do have chocolate thing coming though. I don't want any straight edges. Now this particular baby wipe, we didn't use. So, and I wouldn't use it as a baby wipe first. So if you're gonna use baby wipes, use them for art supplies or art projects first. Isn't that lovely? It's like a little cozy. I don't know if I need this guy. That makes nice fibers too. I don't know. Maybe I can just layer that on up. It's like, yeah, maybe I can layer those on top of each other. My goodness, maybe this will be on the front. I don't know if this will go all the way across. Okay, let's start there. I don't know where this is going. We're gonna find out together. Let me go back to my sponge. But I'll tell you, no matter what, how this turns out, I'm having so much fun. I hope you are too. I hope you're having as much fun over there as I'm having over here. Because this is really blast. Now, we're going to be doing all sorts of things like this with art supplies on the coming months. We're going to, anything goes. We're going to be just exploring. And sometimes as I'm in the process, I learn, like, you know, I know that this is about self-love. And I'm learning a lot about myself by how I represent this in a physical form. I mean, this is a mix of everything, and that's who I am. And that's, for me, I think the biggest challenge for self-love it is self-acceptance, is, you know, I know all of my flaws more than anybody else in the world because I'm very self-aware. Some people just ignore and don't know, but I'm very aware. I'm very hyper aware of my flaws. And, you know, I can feel insecure about those flaws. And I know that about myself. And through these types of exercises, you know, we can learn to accept that, you know, accept ourselves. I mean, that's really where we have to start, folks, because practicing to accept ourselves gives us the tools and the abilities to accept others. It's really hard to accept others when we haven't learned to accept ourselves, and vice versa. Sometimes we have to learn to accept others first because it's even harder to accept ourselves because we know about all of our flaws. But both exercises are important. Loving self is a key to starting out, because when we overflow with love ourselves, we can overflow that love to others. It comes out whether we want it or not. We don't even have to try. It just overflows from us. So, all right, I think I want this guy to be like almost like a little heart cozy. Like this is going to be, this is like keeping my heart safe. But I'm also trying to keep my heart open to self-love, open to love from others. So in here is opening, right? That's the heart opening. And out here are things that are like, okay, I'm going to take care of myself, self-care. Take care of my heart. But I'm not trying to build a wall. I'm just trying to be aware that it's okay to take care of myself first. It's not selfish. You know, we're trained by society that loving ourselves and doing for ourselves is selfish. And it's hard to rewire our brains, especially for women. And this isn't to offend any men out there. But I think, you know, society pressures women to be the caregivers. You know, we're designed to take care of everybody else's needs. And we are celebrated when we ignore our own needs in this society. And so it's important for us to celebrate when we also take care of and love ourselves, because when we are healthy in mind and body and spirit, we are going to be so much better at being a caregiver for everybody else, you know, because we're going to be healthy and our needs are going to be taken care of because we're making sure that they are. So we're going to be able to overflow that love, that energy, that care to other people. So don't be afraid. Don't, you know, we need to stop shaming ourselves into not being able to take care of ourselves and thinking that as selfish and self-centered, because like they say on the plane, put your oxygen mask on first. And it's so true. How can you take care of anybody else if you're not healthy, if you don't have that healthy spirit, if you don't have that healthy mind, if you don't have your healthy body? So we got to start there. And this is gauze, which is a medical supply. So that kind of represents like a healthy heart. And that means several things. That can mean take care of my physical heart, but also heal wounds from the past, because you know, we've all experienced traumas in our life. I'm no exception to that. And we have to allow ourselves to heal and move forward. So I think that's a good symbol to healing the heart. Not taking that pain and those wounds with us, not adding to our suffering. Okay. I'm really enjoying that. I'm liking how that's coming along. And I think it's time I can add some more paint, because I don't want that to be such a harsh color. I want to tone that down a little bit. This is still wet, so I'm gonna dry that glue. Oh my gosh, we're already at almost 9. Okay, I need to check in because I know we're getting really late. So let me just pause things for a minute. All right, so we're back to this. I'm liking where that's going. I'm gonna go ahead and dry this. I think what I'm going to do, since I'm going to probably not put a lot of the gesso over here, and that's going to take a while to dry because it's quite the pool of adhesive over there. So I think what I'm going to do is just do some gessoing around here, just tone down this while I'm waiting, while I'm letting that air dry a little bit. And, or maybe I don't even want to use, I'm deciding whether I want to, yeah, I think I will still want to use the gesso version because I think that's going to stick if I do any like pencils and things like that on top of it, which I do want to do a little bit. It's going to let me, it's going to stick a little bit better. So just going to mix that up a little bit since it's been a while. It smells like baby powder. And I think I'm just going to do it like the finger tool. And I'm going to let some of it show through. I don't want to cover all of it, but I want to tone it down. So it's sort of like a whitewash. And whitewashing and also, you know, hiding a little bit of it and then letting some of it show. So I'm just doing kind of a mix. See where it goes to give it a little bit of, you know, settle it down a little bit, make it a little bit more cohesive. It tones down the contrasting colors a little bit. And again, you could do this with, the gesso tends to be a little less opaque than if you used an acrylic paint. Now you can water down the acrylic paint to make it more like a whitewash. Be aware though, as with anything, the more you add something to it, it changes the chemical properties. So the ability of the acrylic, it does change. If you add more than 25% of any additive to an acrylic, you can reduce the chemical properties or change those a little bit. So that's fine for this kind of stuff. But if you're working on, something that you want to sell, it just, is going to change the durability, changes the chemical structure of it. They recommend up to 25% thinning with water, but they recommend if you're going to thin it beyond that to use a 50-50 mix of a fluid gel medium. And again, this is for artist level, but 50-50 fluid gel, fluid acrylic medium with water. So 50-50 fluid medium and water, and then mix that in to thin the acrylics to get the best, highest quality. So I just read a whole entire 100 and something page book on acrylics. So by Liquitex. Liquitex is actually the original inventor of the acrylics back in 1955. They're fairly young, acrylics are. And so they were created in 55 and they called it Liquitex because it's liquid and texture. You can get all of the ranges of consistencies in them. So
Shauna, can you use what kind of paint would you put on top of that if you wanted to paint on top of it?
Yeah, so normally I would use an acrylic. I would either be doing this with a gesso, which is acrylic, basically an acrylic primer. And like I said, the gesso, acrylic gesso is a little bit less opaque typically then if you use a acrylic paint. So if you want to see through it, you could use the gesso, or you could even just use a white acrylic paint that's watered down a little bit. But it's just going to be a little bit more opaque, so you may not see as much under it with the paint versus the gesso. So the gesso is nice because now this is my fake gesso that I made with the latex, but that's not what I would normally
Would you consider using gouache paint on top of the gesso?
Well, the problem with gouache, the biggest problem with gouache is that it's watercolor based. It's water based, so it's always activatable like any other watercolor. So what you would want to do if you're using gouache, you certainly can use a gouache, but you would want to do some kind of fixative over it, because whenever you add anything wet, it's going to lift.
So like maybe put the gel medium on top of it or something?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Just
Thanks.
be careful when you put the gel medium on top of it that you don't work it too much, or else you'll move that pigment.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Thank
But if
you.
you're doing something like this, it
Mhm.
doesn't, and then you lay it on top gently, it's not going to be, you're not going to probably have too much problems with it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, I'm liking that. I'm liking that. I really want to soften. See those kind of harder edges? I want to soften all of that, and it just tones it all down. There's still the hint of that collage under there, but it's just softer and more cohesive. You see how that just settles it down, so it doesn't feel so strikingly contrast. It's just a softer look once you do the whitewash effect. All right, so I've got a pretty good layer of that going on, and now stuff's sticking to it because I have too many things on my surface. So let's try, I would love to do, I kind of want a vintage edging on this. So I think I'm going to start there and give this more time to dry in the center. Now I keep folding it to make sure that it's sort of stretching out the materials at the crease, because that's the part that could be delicate there. So I want to make sure it's going to keep being able to fold. Now I can always wrap this. I think what I'll do is might make this a little tie. Like I should have glued it under here. Interesting. I could have glued this under here and then made it a tie so I could close it. I think I might try to do that. Yeah, I kind of want to do that. Okay, I'm going to use a letter opener, which is not art supplies, and I'm going to try to lift this a little. See if I can just make a little hole under here. And then I'm going to actually probably use the glue full strength, since I'm gluing thread rather than the thinned out version. I can get the bottle to open. Uh-oh. Can't seem to get there we go. All right, so I'm going to try to just put a little bit of, I'm going to get the glue started over here so I make sure I don't want to squirt out a big clump of glue. There we go. Okay, but I want a little more full strength. And then I'm going to run it along this whole line. More than enough. So I'm going to stick that. Yeah, I'm going to stick that right under there. Now, this is something that I might try to use a stronger glue for, like a hot glue gun or something, but I'm going to try not to use my hot glue gun. Now this, I think if I don't think I need as much ribbon as I thought I could need. I want to make sure I can tie it. think I'm gonna just wait. I'm gonna wait till it dries to cut it to make sure I have enough to tie. And then I'm gonna bring it around the other end. And let's see if I can find a place to tuck it in over here. Oh, it's kind of right here. See if I can get it under here. See? Boom. A little pocket. Because sometimes you don't figure it all out right when in the right order. I mean, this wouldn't have been the order I would have done this in, but I didn't know where it was going to go. So I couldn't have known I was going to put this tie there yet. Because it's, for me, it is an organic process. I mean, I talked about that algorithm, but once I get going, then it just has a mind of its own in many ways, you know, it builds itself as it goes. And I like to go with the flow. All right, so now I have a tie. I can tie it closed with. I think I could just, yeah, like I think I could cut it right at those knots and not have the knots. I didn't know if it was going to be long enough, so I tied 3 pieces together, but it's definitely going to be long enough. So I'm just going to cut it right at the knots. And then I'm going to glue the ends just to keep them from fraying, maybe. Now, fabric glue is another glue that I would probably keep in my repertoire of adhesive products. I do have some, but I'm, again, trying to not use anything art related. This one's kind of getting dried up though. They have lots of different ones, but this is good if you're using fabric. I don't know. It's designed for fabric and fabric's unique. So I don't know how that fares better or worse, to be honest, because I don't work with a lot of fabric stuff. Okay, so now I've got a cool tie. I like it. I like it. Now I want to get some other pigments going. All right, the first thing I want to do is create kind of a nice dark edge. So I think I'm going to start with ashes. Oh, hold on. Oh, that's a horrible nursery brand. Okay, so this is just burnt stuff. I actually burnt some cardboard on my stove and wanted to try to use that, see what it does. So that's what I'm gonna do. And I have another one I sifted it through so it's a little bit neater in case I want to add it to paint. But this I just want to rub on. So I have these are kind of mixed. So I'm just gonna see if I can get enough pigment with that. I don't know if it's gonna be enough. It's kind of light. Just making it a little dirty around the edge, which is where I want to go, but it's not really that dark. I think I want something that's a little darker, a little too subtle, if you ask me, which could be fine for something else, but I'm going to try I think the graphite will be better. So I'll show you an easy way to do the graphite is to,
I have a stamp pad in my desk, like archival stamp pad black, and you could pull that across the side.
absolutely doing like, yeah, stamping. That's what I would do. If I'm using art supplies, I would use a stamp pad along the edge. Absolutely. I would also use just some black, I could do black gesso, or I could use acrylic paints too. This is just my challenge of not using any of that.
Right.
But yeah, good. I'm glad you said that because I should be talking about what you could use. It doesn't have to be the non-art supply. So you can take a pencil and a piece of sandpaper and just draw on it. And then you take your finger and pick up some of that graphite and, you know, lay it down. Again, it's pretty subtle. Not giving me a lot of color. More than the ash, but it's not a ton. So we'll see. I'm going to go with this for now. And then I can always lay something else on top. And this is one of those things where, you know, it stays somewhat activated. It's not gonna, you know, it's not gonna necessarily be a permanent pigment. It's probably gonna be ground in a lot, so it's not gonna move a ton, but it's not gonna move a lot if I add, you know, a layer of gel over it. But it's something to be aware of. If you don't seal it, and you use this, it's going to make your fingers black because it's always going to stay active like a watercolor does. So you're going to want to have some kind of sealer over the top of this so that you don't make yourself dirty when you're trying to look at it. And I also like to put some pigment or something along the edges. I like to think about, you know, getting the edge so that it's not, so that it's dark. So I like my edges to be nice and dark. It kind of, I don't know, it frames it and highlights the stuff in the middle a little bit. I like to add a little bit of a darker frame. I tend to like compared to a darker frame. So it sort of says, okay, that goes off into the shadows. We don't have to worry about what goes on beyond that because everything that's important is right in here. All the important stuff is here. So we don't have to worry about going beyond the page. So lots of different things could be used for this. You could use pastels, you could use crayons, you can use paints, you know, to get that edge. You can use really any pigment. Now I kind of want, let's see what other, I like that cinnamon. I'm going to use maybe some of that cinnamon, see if I can get it to be a little almost sepia too. Rub that a little bit, almost give it sort of an antique-y look. I don't know if that's really picking up a lot of that pigment. But it's fun. All right. And then if I get tired of fighting with it and it's not dark enough, I can move to my, this is actually a furniture blend fill crayon that I found in the drawer. So it's not art supply, so it counts. And I can just, I'm going to run this just along my very edge because I want that to be. It's a good idea to run it from the back. So if you don't want to get it to accidentally slip and fall on the face of your project. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish this off later too, but I just haven't got there yet. But I'm going to just go ahead and on the edge of this, I'm just filling it in. Now, if I was going to sand the shape down at all, I wouldn't want to do this yet because I would be sanding some more, but I'm just going to let it be what it is now. And this just gives a more complete look to the edge. So you're not seeing that brown or the cardboard come through, you know what I'm saying? Here's my sanding block. There's a little. And I just look around, I see all the mess and I think, oh my gosh, that was so fun. It's fun to just let yourself go. I don't like to do it from the front because I'm gonna probably miss. I don't want to. Okay. All right. So use that. And then also I can get my makeup. Oh, yeah, actually I have a really good, this might work. This is This is a chocolate, I think is the color, and it's kind of shimmery. See how that. These pots that I got at the dollar store, they look huge, but I don't know how much is actually in there, to be honest. I think it's and it's hard to get to because you have to stick this little brush in this slot. You can't open the whole thing up, which I didn't realize. So lessons learned. It was a dollar store. It was like $1. I think it was Dollar Tree. I like the shimmer. I don't know if I can get more. See, it's like you can't get a ton of it out. There we go. Now we're cooking with gas. Oh yeah, I'm liking that that shimmeriness. That's fun. All right, I might use this whole thing. And the only way to get it out is to really kind of try to, because you're trying to get that to come out through the little slot. It isn't always that easy. All right, I don't want my edge to be like, look real even. I want it to just sort of fade away. So I want to make sure it doesn't look like too much of a band. That makes sense. I'm going to put a little bit of this in here too, because that's kind of fun. Okay, I'm liking it. And then I want a little bit of, let's see what I got. Oh, I got purple too. I could add some purple. I think the easiest thing is to put it on my hands. That's pretty. Let's see what that does. Oh, what's my other timer? It's telling me that the jacuzzi is closed for the night. Have a funny story. I didn't get a chance to shower today. Good thing it's not smell-o-vision. Even though, I mean, I showered yesterday, but still, I usually shower before the meetup. And we've been fighting giant electric bills lately. So we had this great idea of turning off our water heater and just turning it on like once a day, let it heat up, to wash the dishes, take showers and whatnot. So at 9 o'clock, when that other alarm went off, that was my turn on the water heater alarm and time to go to the hot tub. Because I shower then after I go to the jacuzzi. So I turn it on and then I go to the hot tub, and then by the time I get back, I can turn it off and we have enough hot water to handle everything. Well, I didn't think of to make a timer for before I have my meetup. So I was like working on preparing, and then suddenly it was 6 o'clock and I didn't turn on the water heater. So I'm like, oh no, cold water. I don't do that. I don't do cold water showers. Luis, he's willing to do cold water showers. I'm not. All right, this is a black eyeshadow, so I'm going to try a little bit of that and see if it gives me a little darker pigment around the edges. Not really, because it's shimmery. Okay, I think to get the dark that I want, ooh, but it has a nice metallic look. Oh, that's fun. Okay, I like it. Oh my gosh, that's so fun. All right, now I'm going to use, to really make that darker, I'm actually going to use a makeup pencil because I want to get uber dark around these edges. So just the really edges. There we go. And this is a dark brown. So it's not going to be, I don't want it to be starkingly black. I just wanted it to be kind of a little grungy. Just fade. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Now, I will say that makeup in general, unless you buy it at the dollar store, might be one of those things that actually does cost more than art supplies to buy. Unless, like I said, unless you buy the cheap stuff. This is not the cheap stuff. It's just what I had. And I don't really, you know, I didn't buy it specifically for art. But I don't use these pencils all that much. So I thought I could do it for one project. But it does make a nice, yummy pencil. I mean, it's made of wax, so why not? It's just like, you know, kind of made from the same thing as any other wax-based pigment. Okay, I'm liking that. All right, now I need to bring back a little bit of some color here on this guy. I really want, you know what I want? Do you know what I want? What I really, really want? Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. I want a heart. Oh, I like that too. I like that. It's already kind of gluey, but this is really thin and I want it thicker. So I think what I'm going to do is glue it down. I'm going to glue it onto something to make it a little thicker. Maybe even a part of this. I'm going to use the cereal box because I want it. So I'm gonna just, problem is I want it torn like that. So I got to figure out if I can. I guess I could leave a little bit of the box showing around it. That could work. I was going to try to take this wax layer off, but oh, there. That wasn't so hard. You can do that. If it comes off easy, you can just take the label part off and you don't have to worry about all that shininess. So, learn something new every second. Look at how yummy dirty my hands are. I love it. Can you tell I'm in my happy place? I don't even know if anybody's still here. But I'm going to not look, so I just don't know. And that way I can just keep talking to you guys.
Shauna, it's just you and I, Judy and
Oh, okay.
I just put that in the chat so you can see it later.
I haven't looked for a long time. Like, I don't even know if anybody's still here, but I'm going to keep talking away.
Get carried away and it's having so much fun. I mean, I understand.
I am.
I'm not seeing my husband in a few days.
Well, and you know, the thing is I always talk to myself when I'm by myself even. Like, so it's not uncommon that I'm talking to myself. So it's just like, you know, I'm in my zone. I'm in my happy place. Okay, I like that. I'm liking that. I think I want to have some color behind there. So I'm gonna, this is a color pencil. So I'm gonna try to get that, have some color. I mean, what else do you do until midnight? Okay, that could work.
Could be watching the Olympics.
Oh, I'd rather, you know, I'd rather do something than watch other people. Well, I have to say though, I do enjoy watching other artists, but I have a hard time sitting still, you know, and even I'll do art while I'm watching stuff. That helps me.
That's
like
right.
watch the TV, but I just tend to like to do stuff instead of watching other people do stuff. I've always thought, you know, sports seems so boring until I started getting really into watching other artists. And then I'm like, you know what? Now I get it. I can watch other artists all day and I can be happy. but I have a harder time with sports. But I understand now people that, you know, watch that. It's like, okay. Although I watch it to learn stuff so I can do it. There's a difference, I guess. All right, there we go. Okay. Oops, my dirty fingers getting in the way of things, but that's okay. It just makes it a little grungier. I like it. Oh, shoot, I'm sticking my, I have such a mess here. Okay. There. Okay. No, I don't want it to be, I don't want to cover all my good, there, maybe there. I don't want to cover all my goodness, my goodies. And then maybe I'll bring some more gauze to come out from below. I'll have to stop putting everything on my wet rag. But I can, yeah, maybe I'll put, all my gauze is wet now because it's been sitting. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I entertain myself. See if I put this below, so it comes out underneath. I want it to tie it together. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you don't. There's a method to my madness. Isn't always. Maybe I'm gonna turn this a little red. I'm gonna color my gauze with some red. Ooh, there we go. All right, I probably should wipe off my fingers because they're so dirty. I don't know. You know what? That actually looks like bloody gauze. I think I'm gonna skip that. I know what I can bring down. Oh, maybe not. Maybe I can bring some of this down. Just want something to peek below there so that it joins in my, there we go. That'll work. That'll work. It's not floating too much. Not floating, float a little bit, but I don't want it to be floating too much. And this little bottle that I use, this is like for ketchup or mustard. You get it like you can find at like a Smart and Final, I think, something like that. That's where I got it. Okay, this little edge right here. I lost all my stuff peeking through. Where did you go? There we go. Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. That's coming together. Okay, I want a little more. I want to bring some colors in. I'm going to play around with this a little bit. And this is just a purple. Plus, so, I don't know. See what happens. It's moving that graphite around. So there, just want to have a little bit of some color. Maybe I'll add some of those on this side. This is actually something I got for a costume, so. It's my witch lipstick. Okay. There we go. Oh, I didn't do any texture with texture paste, but that's okay because I got so much texture with these other things. Oh, I feel like I want to add some of this in here. Yeah, like that. My boyfriend's gonna get home anytime. Oh no, wait, he doesn't get off until 11. So I can play until 11. I want to. Okay, yeah. And then I have this, I have this whiteout. So if I want to put some white highlights, because this, I kind of lost the love you got a little bit dark. So I don't know if I can, I'm going to ruin this, but I'm going to try to put little like highlights in it. If I can, it's too much. That's not what I wanted. Maybe that's not going to work. It's spread out too much. Didn't have it dry enough. Try that again. Take 2. Just wanted to put a little bit of highlight here and there. I don't know about that. Just wanted to brighten it up a little. Because I had too much dark, I had too much of that graphite on my fingers when I, something dark when I was trying to make it, and it subdued that love you a lot. All right, let's see how that's looking. Yeah, I could live with that. I don't know if I like those to be spots or not. Maybe I want them to be a little more. There we go. That's better. I just want them to be more blotchy. Or just random color. Yeah, that's more like it. Maybe a little down here. And what else can be really fun? I don't know if I have a spot for it. But I could do, if I wanted to. Well, maybe I know. Maybe I can liven up this love you with some nail polish. I will say that this brush, though, for this polish is ruined. This brush is like, I don't even know what happened because I was never using it for art, but it's not, it's like out of control. So I'm going to use these, try using these noodles. I don't know. I feel like now it's just disappearing. I don't think I like that. Nope. So before it dries, I can try to wipe it off. Nope, 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 nope. Okay. It just is what it is. So I think, yeah, I think I'm gonna let that go. Although I think I still want a little darker around the edges. Yeah, I think I want that. Which is probably gonna need, I have to sharpen my pencil a little bit. Oh, yeah. There we go. It's fun because I can look at it on the screen and it's like a picture. So it's like, oh, that's what it's going to look like in a picture. And that gives me a new perspective of it. So I can kind of use that and help. Yeah. Rough around the edges. That's me sometimes. Sometimes that can be a little rough. All right, I like that better. Because I want some contrast. I don't want everything to just disappear. This guy's floating. So I think I'm going to have to, I'm going to fill this floating area with some fiber. Something. Oh my gauze is wet. Oh, let's see if I get. Use some of this stuff. Baby wipe. Oh, actually, where is my dryer sheet? I didn't use any dryer sheet, so let's, or did I? I don't remember if I did or not, but I can use some of the dryer sheet in there. Just to make a little filler. There we go. All right, all right, all right. A little bit of glue up in there. Oops. I was going wild and crazy with the glue. All right. I kind of like those fibers hanging off the edge there. Keep that down. Love you, Judy. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Oh. All right. Love you. Love you, love me.
I love you too.
Okay, hold on, I'm recording. I shouldn't be singing. All right. Once that glues down, I think I'm gonna call it. I think that's gonna be the cover of my How Do I Love Me? I should say love me, shouldn't it? Actually, I think I have. It's kind of it could be a message to myself from me. Too, so I could think of it that way, but, or I think I have something that says, this one says show yourself some love. That's cool, but it's too big for, I'm gonna put that inside. I think I'm just gonna leave it like that, and then I'll do the me inside. I don't want to change that up, and I don't know where that one went anyway, but okay. So there is a junk journal ready to be filled with yummy, loving words of love and affirmation. There's the inside pages. And some of this I'm going to cover with gesso and whatnot, but ready to be filled with love to myself. The heart has its reasons, which reason cannot know. That was actually a friend of mine that did that art. She makes me a calendar every year. So, and this, I don't know what that is. Is that part of the Google map? Oh yeah, that's the Google map. No, miscellaneous goodness. So this is going to be a fun one. And there's the back, and there's the whole journal, all made with just stuff around the house. After this dries, I'm gonna do I'll do a layer, probably just like a whole layer of glue, just to seal it down. I might even do a layer of the hairspray first, but I want to let these glues dry completely. But yeah, I think it's coming along pretty nicely. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video. Thank you for joining us, and please like, subscribe, or share if you find this content helpful, and happy Valentine's Day.